Hello, true art believers. Welcome to this week's installment of the Artist Interview Series. Today, I will be talking with artist Braelyn Snow. Braelyn Snow is an illustrator, photographer, and arts educator based in Savannah, Georgia. Her work has medieval Renaissance with Pre-Raphaelite influences, including the materials, techniques, and methods involved. Before we start, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. Thank you, and please enjoy the conversation. Braelyn, welcome to today's artist interview series. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Matt. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a great week. I've been looking forward to it all week. Thanks for having me on.
I really do appreciate it. It's always good to have artists who take up, or I like to say it like they're like sacrificing their time, to provide value to other people and so forth. I have to say, I mentioned this to my wife. I mentioned this. I was like, "Do you know the person I'm speaking to tonight sent me a contract? That's the first time that's happened. I like that idea. I think I need to do that. I need to talk to Braelyn and see if I can get like a contract to have other artists sign just as precaution, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. You can't be too sure. You can't be too safe, I guess. I don't. But I thought it was really, really cool and very professional. I never had that happen before.
Well, I appreciate that. Some of it's me just figuring out a new contract system in place. I'm like, I got to practice using this thing. So I appreciate you letting me try it out on you. But yeah, I think it's important.
Do you have lots of contracts that you hand out to people?
I mean, I try to use one even if I'm doing something that's not, a paid gig or something. Even for people who model for me as friends, I like to throw out just a piece of paper so there's something there. It just kind of keeps things pleasant. Because sometimes I work with my good friends and they'll model for me as some character, and I'm like, I know we're friends and you don't really care, but will you sign this model release for me? It's just for my sake, even if you don't care. I'm trying to get more organized as I go, because my natural tendency is just do everything. And then I'm like, I really am trying to focus on my professional side, my organization, and sort of my bookkeeping side of things. So.
What have you learned thus far? Because I'm really interested in that, because I'm always seeking to kind of optimize or improve scheduling, the business side of art and all that stuff. I'm really kind of naive with regards to like contracts and that kind of stuff. Like, oh, you hired me to do a drawing for you. All right, I draw for you, then I'll give it to you. There you go. I'll give you an invoice. That's about as close as I get to like a contract, but I don't have any contracts or anything like that. So what have you learned so far?
Well, I mean, I had it drilled into me even in undergrad and then after grad or during grad school and everywhere in between. Just you got to treat yourself like a professional if no one else does.
Yeah.
So, we are artists. We are just like every other job out there, in the fact that we need to make a living. We need to guard our time. We need to know our worth. And I think I can speak for most artists. At least I know I speak for myself when I say it's hard to do that. I think we're all kind of conditioned to be insecure. We don't maybe value our work. We want to just say, no one's gonna approve that quote, or they're never gonna, sign that contract. And then they do, and you're like, I could have gotten this, that, and the other, and they would have done it too. And I'm not saying you should be greedy. I definitely don't, but we are business people, and I think the artist community will and should benefit if everyone's on board to treat ourselves as the professionals that we are, or that we're trying to be. I've gone to a lot of workshops. I still feel like I know nothing, but at every little step I take, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can tweak this. I recently started using CRM, a client management software. Mostly I learned this through the photography world, which is Honeybook, and I like it so far. It's cool. So it just kind of streamlines everything you're doing, whether it's sending out a proposal or an invoice, or just kind of keeping track of files, which I definitely need a system for that.
So what's Honeybook essentially?
Honeybook is a software that is geared toward people who are, contract-based businesses. So a lot of artists would fall in that category. It's just a way to kind of organize all the projects you might have on the burners, so to speak, and you can just see them all in one nice place. Which again, for me, I'm so into all these different projects I want to do all the time. That's like, wait, which place did I save that file? Where did I keep this thing? On which hard drive? It gets really chaotic, and so I really like this one so far. I've only recently started using it, but I think it's going to be a good fit.
Is it a program, an application, or like a website?
It is it's a website that has an app as well, and it's just I think it's pretty easy to use. Definitely not sponsored by them at all, because but I really like them. I think I'm going to stick with them for now anyway. So you basically create an account, and you just can import your own information, and it sends emails to clients through the platform. You can get your payments through that too. So it's really convenient.
I gotta look into that. That's very interesting. So
Yeah.
what would be like three like top business like what's the top three business advice that you can share right now that you've learned so far, like that you've acquired and then you've built upon?
Yeah, well, I still feel like I'm a beginner, even though I've, been trying to build my freelance business since I was starting college back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
It still feels like I'm brand new, and maybe that's that what they call it, imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, I'm still a new artist. I've been at it for a decade. But basically, I think the big thing is networking and marketing have been two of the big things that I think are really important, and I'm trying to do more and more all the time. And then the organization is the third. So in terms of networking, a lot of my friends will joke because I've become able to kind of bring what I'm doing into any setting, to the point where people are like, do you ever stop working? I'm like, no, you can't really, because no matter who you meet, they could be a potential client, they could know someone that could lead to something else. And oftentimes the art world is small, even though we're all connected by all this social media and all of the things we think are so broad. And there is definitely a breadth to using that. You can get clients or customers from all over the world now, but at the same time, it's sort of small, kind of this niche world where you may only have a handful of repeat patrons or clients, and that's a good thing if they're good clients. So you want to kind of build good relationships and keep them intact, and then but also plant seeds. I kind of think of lead generation, so to speak, as planting seeds or kind of scattering them to the wind. Talk about what you do with everyone, especially if you think it's going to be a good fit. And then in terms of marketing, I've done some work in marketing, even on the phone, like stuff I never thought I would ever do, but I've learned a lot from that in terms
Do you
of.
call people up?
I have done that kind of job, yes, where you try to set an appointment, meet with people, sell, pitch your product or whatever it is you're trying to do. Definitely not for everyone, I would say, to do that kind of thing, but I learned a lot doing it, and a lot of it was just don't be afraid to have the conversation. People are human beings, even if they're not interested at the time, and if a no is a no, it's not going to kill you. 99% of the time, I guess. Just don't be afraid to try it. Our mental state is really the biggest obstacle. I know for me it is. Um, but just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have a meeting, to try to set up a time to talk about it, to share what you do, because that's how people know. No one can read your mind, and like the algorithms of the internet can't do it all. So, those two things are important. Marketing is all about repetition and consistency and, building your brand. And so that's something I'm working on too. Trying to, have a consistent front out there and really do more work.
Yeah.
I had a professor in undergrad who's fantastic, and he shared kind of I'm sure a lot of people have heard it. There's this study or maybe a test that a class did where half the group was instructed to make one ceramic piece, very like the best ceramic piece they could make. And the other group was instructed, it doesn't matter what it looks like, just make as many as you can in this time. And at the end of the day or end of the class, the people who made the most eventually, they had the best work because they churned it out, they were practicing, they were unafraid to mess up, whereas the other group, it was like, gotta get this perfect, I gotta get it right in one shot. So I'm trying to shift gears from that concern about this isn't perfect, I can't show anyone, or I can't talk to this, publishing company because I don't have this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
And shift gears to just make a bunch of work, talk to a lot of people, and see what happens.
Do you have you ever tried cold calling? You ever tried this cold calling and say, hey, you want some art? Do you like art?
I guess you could call it cold messaging.
Cold messaging.
I've kind of done a variation of that on Instagram. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Nothing too much like a phone call.
Maybe I'll have to try that.
Yeah, I've messaged a few people, and same thing with, LinkedIn or once in a while, Facebook. Emails sometimes too, but Instagram has led to, I guess, probably the best conversation starters. But email as well.
Yeah. I think Instagram could be a very has a lot of utility with it because you have the ability to just DM people, and sometimes obviously some don't allow you to, they don't have that feature, they've blocked it, but some you can DM them and you can just DM a bunch of people, you can just kind of blanket like DM everyone for opportunities. Is that what you do? Do you spend a time DM people on Instagram, or do you have a set time that you do this type of marketing?
Well, I don't do that actually a whole lot. It's more of if I see an existing opportunity, I try to take advantage of it. I'm not really doing the blanket approach right now, but if I see someone that I'd love to collaborate with, or I also was part of a studio that I just recently switched to my own space. But for a while, I was renting a studio space where a bunch of artists were working together. So, trying to reach out to other people is important. Just collaboration is important. That has led to some things. A lot of the leads, though, honestly have been cold coming to me, where I didn't see it coming. Maybe they found me on. I've tried to have my work on some platforms where you can see a lot of artists at once.
Yeah.
And that's led to a couple people, commissioning me for things. And so it comes from lots of different sources. I've had Instagram, lead to sales and stuff like that. But sometimes it just feels like, well, like you said, organic things can come organically from all sorts of places.
What are some very I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. When you're networking, what's the best strategy that you've found so far? It has the highest ROI, return on investment? Like, is it going to like art fairs? Is it going to like uh I don't know, places that they have high quantities of people that are interested in art? You know, it could be gallery openings, or it could be like where are you going to network?
For me, it's usually people I know in real life.
Okay,
I'm a teacher, so I try to talk to the families I know, or I'll talk to people in my own community. I also live in a community with a lot of artists.
that
So,
helps.
I mean, being in Savannah, it's SCAD's town. So I'm with a lot of like-minded people who are also into the arts, and that helps because then people automatically can kind of refer you as well, and there's sort of that built-in collaboration, which I love. And it, I think for me, because I do sort of a kind of a very specific type of work. I work largely in kind of traditional sacred art settings. That's a very tight niche, so to speak, in this uh, artistic climate, just in terms of like how many artists are working with traditional pigments. So maybe a lot, maybe not, I don't know, or who work primarily in stained glass or whatever. I don't do as much as stained glass, but that same kind of genre, it kind of already limits who's going to contact you. And I like that, because I'm not trying to fit every category.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to do comics. I'm not trying to do advertisement, illustration, at least right now. So I think just knowing who's going to be a good fit, who's going to be a good match, and kind of going up with those potential clients is kind of my strategy right now. Connect with the right people, and it'll kind of, I think, take care of itself. But I also think I try to connect with people in the education world too, because oftentimes artists can get stuck just talking to other artists, which we need to do. We must. Obviously, your whole channel's built on that because we need that support network of, you know, bouncing ideas off of one another, sharing
yeah,
other people's work. You got to have that, but also being able to reach into other areas of life. Who do you know in healthcare who could use an illustrator? Who do you know in this part of education who might need something? So kind of tapping into that too.
tell me more about organization. Like, what are you doing? Like, how do you organize your day, and how have you improved since you started becoming more organized?
Right.
Too many
Well,
syllables. I can't say more than one syllable.
no, it's good. I'm laughing because people who know me would be like, "Who? Braelyn's talking on organization. That's frightening." No, in terms of my physical studio space, it can be either super nice or super just like a
A
disaster zone.
mailstorm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, same with when I get done teaching at the end of the day. There's like art projects everywhere. I'm like, okay, trying to go from chaos to order. Let's figure this out. But I will say I've grown a lot in the last several years in terms of, some of it's just experience. Being a teacher, you have to learn by doing. You have to learn by messing up a lot in terms of how you plan your lessons, how you store your materials. Same thing in the art studio space. You're like, okay, what's my workflow? I don't know. And then, as you practice and get sort of a rhythm or rearrange a certain space, I guess my biggest thing is just keep trying. Just don't give up on finding a system that works for you. I still have so long before I feel like I have it figured out, but little by little, it's like whether it was building a custom bookcase for my storage, that was a big step for me, like physically organization. I learned on YouTube, how to build a cube storage thing and kind of customizing it to myself. That was cool. It's like learn a new skill to help me. Having better technology, upgrading your storage on your computer. so that things are all where you can find them easily, all of that. Using the platform I was telling you about before. Just kind of, also a big thing I'm trying to do is simplify. I do a lot of different things. I can't help it. I do love that kind of Renaissance lifestyle. I'm a musician as well, and I like doing costumes. I just kind of love everything. But I've learned it's like, okay, it's time to chop off this limb of the tree, like prune this tree down a little bit so that I can be better at the things I really, really want to do,
Yeah.
which for me is photography and illustration. And how do all these things come together? It's tough. It's like, I don't want to part with this. I don't want to stop focusing here, but I have to. Otherwise, I will not reach the goals that I have for myself. So that's part of organizing too. Just eliminate some things from your life. But boy, it's tough.
It is. You gotta find stuff that's you might find enjoyable, but also can be kind of a time suck. You know, like
Yeah.
and it's I've experienced this as well. Like I've had to like say, oh my gosh, I love doing this so much, but I just can't do it. I have to like take it away. And so for me, it wasn't like a hobby or anything, but it was like video games. I enjoyed playing video game. It was a nice thing to do like after work. But like I was finding that it was making it difficult to do work,
Right.
and so now I just reminisce about it like with nostalgia. And I actually think that I probably, because I like abstain from playing video games, I probably appreciate video games more than like those hardcore gamers that are playing it all the time, because
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun to play, but I can't.
Yeah. I think that's so true of everything in life. When you set a boundary, you do have a better appreciation for what's good, and maybe you realize you don't actually miss it, which is also a plus. If it's something that you're like, why did I spend so much time doing that? Everyone knows the social media issue. I struggle with spending too much time on that, and the other day I just said, not today, I'm not going to spend, and it wasn't because of the blackout, it was just because I'm not going to go on Instagram, Facebook, and I just felt so alive. Like, oh man.
I didn't hear I didn't even know about that until people started like tweeting about it or something like
Yeah.
that. Because I'm always doing stuff, and I know I need to be on social media for marketing and promoting myself, but like it's like the last thing I get to, and then all of a sudden people are like just you just hear like trending the blackout on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm like, what happened? But apparently it was a big deal. Was it a long time or was it a short amount of time?
I feel like people freak out if it's off for 3 seconds. So I think it's several hours that day, which, it was enough that I noticed it. Like, oh, my internet must be broken, but it wasn't. So I was like, something must be going on. But it didn't bother me once I knew it wasn't working. I'm like,
Yeah.
good,
It's
another good day I don't have to spend on there.
it's amazing though, like those applications, they're like configured to give you a small little drop of dopamine,
Yeah, absolutely.
just to kind of like just a little bit of addiction, like like, oh, you scroll up, oh wow, I like that. You scroll up, or what was it, down, whatever way you're scrolling somewhere. You're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's really cool. Let's see, maybe they're going to give me more things I like. Oh no, I like, and it's geared for that. It's just amazing. You got to kind of separate yourself from that. Um,
It
and
makes
and
little sense too. I mean, that we'd be drawn to it and hooked on it. It's everything we like. I mean, whether that's a counterfeit or not, it
Yeah,
has all of our favorite things in one place. It has good news, bad news, entertainment.
Yeah.
It has our kind of our social media as it's sort of our village, our tribe.
Yeah.
My brain, if we don't have a solid tribe in real life, and even if we do, it's still that got to check in with the group, um, see what cool stuff they're sharing today, and just yeah, and the bright colors and the way they format it to have noises, and it's just like a reward fest all the time. But a couple friends, one of my friends especially, had told me to turn my phone to grayscale, which I do, and it's supposed to help. Um, I don't know if it's helping me at all, but it is interesting when I turn the color back on, just
Yeah.
how bright the screens are. It's just total saturation.
Yeah.
And wow, that's probably more color than my ancestors ever saw in their whole life.
Yeah.
Just one screen. So we should give ourselves a little like grace. It's like, okay, well, I can't feel that bad for being sucked into this. It's what it's for.
I've set my phone so that it turns like yellow. It takes away
Mhm.
like the blue light, so you can
Yeah.
sleep better. And I remember I was at the Apple store or like the phone store was either a phone store or Apple store, and
Yeah.
he was looking at my phone. I was like, "Why is your phone doing that?" Like, I don't understand. It's so weird looking.
Like,
He was
you
like,
can
"This is
put it-
this is a weird looking. Your phone's weird. Did you like drop it?" No, I set the settings so it takes out the blue light. Like, you can do that? Like, yeah. But I thought that was interesting. So, with as far as organization, do you stick to a schedule? Do you have a planner? Do you block out your time? Do you use any applications? What do you do?
Well, a lot of it's just based on my schedule that I don't have control over. So my teaching schedule, I'm sort of part time. So I have a class here, then another class here, and then another class
Yeah.
here. So I have these windows to work on stuff in between those, and then I do have a pretty full schedule most nights, just in general. So it kind of just it needs to be when I have time, and I could do so much better on the block schedule. I really like that idea of just this is the time I do this every week. And there are things like that I've been implementing. But it's mostly dictated by just when when can I fit this in, and it works okay, but sometimes it's unduly stressful.
Have you read or heard of the book Atomic Habits?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
It's a pretty good book. I've also I was listening to like an audio book about
Right.
um it was about business, and it had I don't remember the name. It was like a free Amazon Audible book that I just downloaded. I just downloaded a bunch of free books on Amazon Audible, um, because they're like they have just a bunch of free books. But like one thing that struck me was called like a thing that you have in business or in like fast food and in warehouses and all like factories is a standard operating procedure. And I've been tweaking with this idea of doing a stop or a standard operating procedure for my morning and my evening. And the reason why the morning is key because morning for me is where I do all my art or like all my business and art related stuff. And I've been trying to like figure out how can I do this? Okay, coffee. Okay,
Yes.
uh, uh, write down journal, write down some ideas for the day. Um, look at my calendar for a few minutes, and then maybe like my most important task, which would be like whatever I have going on for that day. I do my most important task, which is something that has to do with business related or something that's going to move the ticker forward for like maybe do that for an hour, and then do some studying, like draw studies where I practice drawing, and then that's why I've been trying to do. It's really hard. It's really hard to maintain consistency because
Sure
like what
is.
happens is like I'll like okay, I get the coffee and that's it. That's all that happens. I get the
Um,
coffee and I'm like I'm sitting down in my office. I look at my things that I need to accomplish. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to just drink this coffee. You know.
yeah. Absolutely.
So
It's so easy to have that happen. One thing that's helped me, especially this past year, maybe 2, um, uh, one of the places I worked for, they would always say, actually, I still work for them a little bit, but they would say, "Just be 1% better today."
yeah,
So easy to get for me, all or nothing thinking, where I'm like, "Well, I screwed that up this morning. I didn't work out, and I didn't do this. My laundry's still whatever." And it's just like letting that dictate the rest of the day instead of, "No, but I did this thing better than I did yesterday. That's awesome. Let's build on that momentum." And so some things that that I've noticed I can do 1%. 1% is reachable today.
yeah.
Whether that's staying longer to get more stuff done at school so that I don't rush around in the morning the next day, or, you know, is it setting things out to get my work done again the night before, or is it, make sure to charge all my camera batteries, whatever it is. Little things, they are attainable.
Yeah, and it's also funny, the minute when you said, like, you have those, like, events that can kind of throw you off,
Yeah.
you know? Like, you can have that momentum and then something you do something just off by a little bit, like, by, like, a fraction, and sometimes it feels like you're just trying to play, like, catch up with the
Yes.
rest of the day, and then you get really, like, on a subconscious level, you get kinda bummed out, you're upset about, like, "Oh gosh, I everything's going so smoothly, and then I had to help a friend out, or I don't know, or I had, like my car broke down, or some like this, some silly little thing that could theoretically just make your day bad, but you can always you gotta kind of have to psych yourself out and make yourself understand that like there's going to be like bumps in the road, you know.
Absolutely.
I often think about like I talk to myself in the same manner. We're like 1% better, but I also thought I've heard that phrase from Brian Tracy, that Atomic Habits guy, I believe, talks about that as well. I kind of psych myself out. Like the next day, I'll say, you know what, I probably was my batting average was about 50%, you know, and like if I can do like that or higher, that's great. That means I'm hitting almost all my stuff that I wanted to do. And the rest of the stuff that I was not hitting, it's just because I probably put too much in for the day.
Yeah.
And that's what I typically do anyways.
Yeah, I felt that with the things that get in the way, because um, I can get pretty frustrated, feeling I'm spinning my wheels, and just um, some of that's just life, as a young person. My 20s have been a lot of moving. I've moved basically every year since I've lived in Savannah to a new apartment or whatever, just circumstances, and just how exhausting moving can be, which I mean, I'm grateful. I've always had a place to live. I've always had a decent place to be. And, but just that process of kind of starting over all the time, and how do I do that and be an artist at the same time? I feel like a lot of artists probably can relate to that of, whether you move to a new city, which I did, and just starting from scratch all the time. uh,
Yeah.
I kind of have this ideal life in my head where one day I'm going to have a house and a studio in my house, and I'll be able to work 8 hours without any interruptions, and that's not my life. It may never be my life. And so I'm kind of seizing the power of now in the present moment. What I have in front of me now, is that's what I'm doing, and I have to take advantage of it because there's no guarantees, and you can't wait for things to be ideal. Things are
Yeah.
already pretty good, even with the world in the state it's in. And things are still really good for me right now. I need to take advantage of the time I have. Maybe I have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. I better use it well. And I don't always, but I'm trying.
So some people use the analogy like you have like $24. how are you going to spend those $24 in a day? You know,
Yeah,
is it going to go towards entertainment, you know, or is it going to go towards something that is going to make you better? Like, may not make you like better financially, but like as a person, it makes you better, you know? So I like thinking about those weird type of like analogies from time to time.
for sure. And
What?
it's helpful.
Yeah.
'Cause
So you.
you can make money back. You can't make time back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I think the older I get, the more I think about like how I'm using my time, and I also think about this. There's also a double edged sword. Like I see people my age or younger or older, and I hear how they're spending their time. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, that's not. Don't do that. That's that. You're gonna look back and think you're gonna have some regrets. You
Yeah,
know, because it's you know like because when you're if you're spending all your time watching like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and all that kind of stuff, that's a good treat, you know. Like I get it, man. I love that stuff, but like you gotta be doing something to give value to you and to other people, or at least that's what I think is a very substantive thing. You know,
yeah,
I think that's important. I never would have thought that like 10 years ago. Um, I think that's just because of like wisdom, I guess. I don't know. Like you're when you're young and dumb, I guess.
well, it's the path of least resistance. It's the
Yeah,
for all of us. We want what's easy, and so
it's
if
so
you
fun.
choose, if you're choosing to actively resist going that way, which it is so easy, I know it is. Then you're doing something. Maybe heroic isn't. Maybe that's a bit dramatic, but in a sense, it is. I mean, you're if you can choose the harder path in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah,
that's brave, and it's also not popular or comfortable necessarily. Um, but it's so worth it, and I want to be more and more on that path without burnout or without. There's a balance. Not the I don't necessarily know if I buy the whole stereotypical work-life balance as much as just making your life the life it needs to be. Because I guess maybe being an artist, you don't necessarily separate your life from your work. And same with being a teacher, it's sort of all just, oh, I do these things, and it's sort of an extension of who I am, which isn't fully true because I'd be me regardless of what I did. But I enjoy the work I do, and it is important to me. So the balance part is like, well, what do you mean? This is what I want to do. uh, Gratefully, doesn't mean it's always fun to do the things you like doing. but I guess I'm backing up. I'm saying there are good ways to rest and relax. So we shouldn't avoid that. We need to rest. There's a book which I still have not read called Leisure, the Basis of Culture, and it's been on my, staring at me to read it for a long time, by Joseph Pieper. And everyone I know who's read it says you gotta read this. It's great. So embracing true leisure and rest and taking time to just breathe and be is important, but that's not just wasted time. I think it's that unintentional waste of time that's so scary. Just that it's gone, like what did I do with that hour? What did I do with that day? Those are the days where we feel just icky. I think I feel gross on.
yeah.
It's like, well, whether I work or rest, I want it to be intentional and meaningful, and I want to be present in that. Um, but it's easy to just let it go, be carried by the stream. So just to have to turn around and swim upstream, it's a constant struggle.
So how do you, what kind of things do you do for leisure?
Well, I sing a lot. I am a professional singer at the cathedral here in Savannah, but I also sing in another group that's not paid or anything. So choir is a big part of my life, and I really enjoy that. It's also a good way for our community to stay, close as friends. And music is a huge, I mean, that to me, music is one of those things that it kind of has this glimmer of eternity embedded in it, where everyone who listens to music has kind of good music, I should say. Good music has an eternal quality to it. So to be making that kind of music is one of the best things I think I could do with my time. Um, Books, I love to read. I'm part of a book club, a couple of book clubs actually.
Oh,
We're,
wow.
we just
2?
started, yeah, we just started a couple new ones. One of them is, I don't know, do you know the name Hildegard of von Bingen?
No.
Some would say von Bingen. It depends. She was a medieval mystic who was like a total polymath lady. She was a nun. She was an expert in like medicinal plants and art. She wrote music. She did all these things where I'm just like fangirling. And I don't know, we're reading some of her work and it's very fascinating. But she was a German mystic back in the early part, like the 1100s. That's fascinating, and it's like it's hard. It's hard reading sometimes, but I love the discussion. So that's another way I feel like I'm using my time with some meaning, and then being a teacher. I love teaching kids. I think there have been times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to teach. It's so hard, but this year especially, there's just been something really special about the year, and having people back at school, and I really do think that. I mean, as an artist, I want my art to be great, but there's something about teaching a child that's priceless to me, and I really love that. Um, but in terms of just like hanging out, relaxing, I like good movies if I can find one. Sometimes it's like the choosing is hard. um, and talking with loved ones and friends and dinner parties and just things like that. Those are when I feel alive. I do like a lot of alone time though. I think that's helpful as an artist to be an introvert. So I can just be alone and be okay with that too. So just depends on the day.
Do you practice meditation?
Not like a formal meditation. But I mean, I'm Catholic, and so like there's a kind of a layer of meditation in Catholic prayer. So
Mhm.
I would consider that my version of that. So it's not like it's more of a guided meditation where you might be doing a specific prayer or thinking about an aspect of the divine. It's not just like a blank meditation. It's a very focused on something or someone rather. So that's what I would consider my version of that. And silence is hard, but I feel like, especially if my mind just kind of goes, like, okay, I need to silence not just my mouth, but my mind, and just sort of be still. Um, as a Catholic, there's this tradition of Eucharistic adoration, which is pretty specific to that faith, and sounds totally wacky to people who don't have the same belief on theology, but that's definitely something important to me where you can just go be kind of still in a little chapel, and I always leave there feeling kind of like new life has come back, where maybe I was a total hot mess and losing my temper all day, or just totally stressed out, and I go there and I'm like, oh yeah, like priorities, and kind of reset button there.
Does art stress you out? Do you get like stressed out doing art, or is it like or is other things that are
Oh yeah,
getting the way down?
everything can stress me out. No, it does. I mean, deadlines can be scary. I have a couple coming up that I'm like, huh, okay. I know December is like seemed far away at one point. It's
Yeah.
not. So that can get scary. Um, Technology issues are my biggest stress when it comes to that. And they're like, why computer? I thought I asked you something really simple and it's not apparently. So those things are stressful sometimes. And just drawing, even though I love drawing, but keeping my sketchbook sometimes just feels like pulling a tooth. I'm like, I don't know why. When I start, it's always great. But that discipline of drawing all the time is hard for me. It stresses me out. And then I do it and I love it. So, but all of it is fun to a certain extent. It is not a hobby though. And that's where I think a professional artist is born when you realize it's not a hobby. And I'm again still taking those baby steps toward
Yeah.
professionalism, but there's still it's so easy to slip into this is my hobby mindset when it's not. You want this to be your job, and so you have to treat it like a job.
Yeah.
Just go when you want to do something. You got to do it when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not where I want to be yet, but more than I once was.
Well, I think one of the problems that from that is like we society treats artist or art as like a hobby, like as a net default,
Right.
you know, and not as a job or a career. And you're and because of that, you're brought up from when you're a little kid to your adult as like you're like, mommy, look what I draw. I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
Yes.
Let's put that on the refrigerator. Now go do your homework, you know.
Right.
And so it's treated like it's just a glorified hobby. And if you sell something, they're like, oh, that's great. Uh, but it's not like it's going to pay your bills every month, you know. But that's changing. You know, the way that you can network and get yourself out there is changing.
It is.
Case in point, this
Exactly.
right here. And like people can make lots and lots of money doing it. I've heard some crazy stories about like uh, comic book artists going grassroots. They're not even like they're not sponsored by Marvel or DC or Image or those whatever. They just made their own little comic and printed it themselves, and they get like $1 million, and it's all theirs because they own the licensing and copyrights. It's their comic, you
Yeah.
know. People
YouTube.
make yeah
You
yeah
know, it's actually it's actually a weird dilemma as the art teacher at my school to have students who tell their parents they want to be a YouTuber when they grow up. Because on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, freelance life. Like, especially if you want to do animation or something, totally support. But at the same time, like, and from a teacher point of view, you're like, whoa, all these kids, their life goal is to be a YouTuber or a TikToker. That's a new everything.
yeah
With these little kids, like that's what they grew up seeing, just like our generation or before would have seen traditional TV as a viable career. So of course, but parents, they may not be ready to hear that, and other teachers may not either. Um,
there
that's an
there
interesting thing.
there is schools now to be like an influencer.
I've seen that, especially in I think I forget which countries I've seen that. Um, might have been China. I could be wrong. I think it was.
Yeah, but it was really creepy because like they're like they have they're sitting in front they're in a giant stadium or auditorium, and they're all wearing pink shirts, and they're all in front of a ring lamp, and they all have their camera there, and they're like, "Hey guys, welcome to my show, blah 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 blah. I'm
Yeah,
just like the other 5,000 people behind me." You know?
that's where it's really, I call it disturbing, because
Yeah, it was weird.
it's like one thing to influence someone naturally or because you have something virtuous to emulate, but just to seek out to influence people to just copy your mannerisms,
Yeah,
that's problematic. I mean, just look how that in bad times of history, how many horrible things have been done in the world because people just kind of blindly followed this model of being. And I mean, don't have to look far back either. Just in terms of, especially kids, um, they follow, they're sponges. They're very, we're all kind of made to copy
yeah,
something.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very, you got to be careful. And then just to see it be so clone like, that's so strange.
Yeah, it's very, very like formulaic and such. But like, what also is weird about it is it's given off like the false presumption that like it's going to be easy, like to be a YouTuber, it's going to be easy to be like a top YouTuber. No, you can be working a lot, uh, or
Yeah.
like a TikToker. It's going to be easy, like unless you like I don't know, uh, got a viral video and like it put you on the map or something. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but even then, they're going to expect you to pump out content, and otherwise, they're not going to follow you anymore. And like, there's this expectation that like it's like a fast lane road or fast road to a fast like way to get to success, and uh, it's it's not like that. Like what was it, Mr. Beast? He's got like 20 million followers on YouTube or something. Like he started when he was like a young kid, and like for like he was doing it for like 10 years or more.
Right.
And like I looked at his first video. His first video was him like showing a cheat on Minecraft, and it was like 2 minutes long or something. And then there's another person who has like 20 million followers, and his was no different. His was showing like his video. His first video was like a video of him doing a kill shot on the Gears of War, a video game, and that was it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's definitely that 15 minutes of fame mentality where everyone wants to give a stab at it, to see if can I make it. But it's just like you said, it's like every job. Those who try have to keep trying and
yeah,
going on. It's like, but we're also in the world that's post American Idol and all the shows like that, where again, it's a different life. People used to have to be trying for a long time to get fame or success in most instances. And
yeah,
then you have these kind of fast forward buttons to that level. But I feel like, the faster the flame, the quicker it burns out. So yeah, a lot of kids, they think that of course is not gonna probably be the case. But I don't know, I'm glad there are people like you who are, putting out quality things and you're trying to make something of value put on the internet, because goodness knows we need more of the good stuff.
I look at it as it's also a like a time capsule and a reference point that you could that the artist from that time that specific artist from that time can look back or show that to clients or show that 20 years from now and say, this was me at this time and this was where I was at, and I was like, man, and they could be like, oh man, what was I thinking? I wasn't even doing good art back then. You know,
Well,
yeah, it's interesting. The whole thing is rather interesting. I find it really funny. You find like these like meme videos or these like compilation videos of of like influencers, but they're like blocking traffic because they're trying to do
Yes.
their photo op, and the traffic people are like, I gotta go to work or something.
Oh, I've seen a couple channels like that, like influencers in the wild or something, where you're like,
Yeah, you
I mean,
it's bad.
on the one hand, I'm a photographer, so I'm out and about doing shoots in the middle of all sorts of places, but I try not to be totally oblivious to the real world.
Yeah,
I might be taking a picture of a girl on the side of the street, but I mean, there is sort of that. That's what I think bothers me the most. It's not that people want to be famous, which is just sort of I guess, a human thing.
yeah,
It's the detachment from reality
yeah.
that's really scary to me,
It
where people
screams.
just don't even understand. There's just so much lack of empathy that I've seen celebrated. Not even just that it's happening, but that it's celebrated. Like, I'm gonna do what I want, but we're also just, I mean, young people, younger people than I am, than as a millennial, people who have been raised with all of this stuff just all their whole life, virtual and real, there's no distinction. And I think um the physical world just doesn't necessarily mean much to some people. There's this
Yeah,
virtual slash digital slash intellect world, and I say intellect in the sense of not bodily, but just thought world. Not because I think it's lots of smart decisions out there, but uh, there isn't that understanding that the physical world has real consequences, that people can get hurt or die, or I think obviously this past 2 years has been a real wake up call for a lot of people, in sense of most people maybe never had to think about that before. That maybe real life has some weight to it. Um, I'm not saying you should dwell on the scary stuff, but if people never have like a gravitas to their life, then I fear for them. They never have to think about the fact that their life matters. It has consequences, that their choices matter too, and that you can't just be on a screen your whole life copying other people. I mean, I don't know. We all copy, so that's not the problem. It's what are we emulating? What are we seeking to become? So, as a teacher, I really feel like I had to fight that current a lot with my students, where they just kind of spew out the stuff they see and hear, and we try to dig into, but what is it that you like about that show or that YouTuber, or what do you like about this thing that you want to be like,
yeah.
and get them to
What have
think a
you
little
learned?
bit. Yeah.
What have you learned from those experiences?
Well, you have to remember that kids are kids, and that's okay. That their brain is in a different place of development, and they're supposed to copy. That's part of playing.
Yeah,
But I think I'm also in a kind of a bubble of people who are not too big on lots of screen time for kids. And I don't think screens are, off limits for kids, but I definitely think when you're first learning about the world, you must interact with the world, not have a symbolic world first. Um, the kind of math that we do at our schools is very much the Singapore math model, which is really big on physical things. You have to understand reality to understand the symbol that represents reality. And as an artist, that's the same thing. But kids they have to explore the world physically. They have to know how to pick real objects up, not just swipe them on pixels.
do you feel that they're not as hand-eye coordinated as when you were their age?
Possibly. I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything. I don't have any studies about it. I haven't read. I'm sure there are tons out there. And I'm not totally like, anti-technology. I'm not. We're on the screen right now and it's a good thing. But I think it's a really a big deal with the young ones. Not to mention just internet safety and all those things that come with it. But yeah, I think as an art teacher, I'm really passionate about the eye-hand connection. I want them, I expect a certain level of mastery over their body. They have to be able to control their self, whether they're staying in a seat for a set amount of time. We're also big on outdoor time, so that's a nice balance there. Because I don't think kids should have to sit in a chair the whole day either. But
Yeah.
I also think self control is important. That's not really something that's celebrated in our world either. Maybe some with athletes. Yeah, I'd say with athletes it's celebrated, but not a whole
Define
lot.
self-control.
Being the master of yourself in terms not of you're like God or anything. Like you're not totally, you know, in control, but you are in as much that your choices, you can choose what you do with this time right now. And obviously, I'm not accounting for people who have like conditions that isn't the case. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think a lot of attention problems are things that we don't ever give people a chance to work on.
Yeah.
And there are real learning disabilities and things that everyone has to work through and stuff like that. That's something that I respect a lot. But I think a lot of people just don't have the idea that you can train yourself to pay more attention and you can help kids learn to be more um, settled in or concentrate. And I've really pushed that with my students, and I've seen really good things happen. It can feel really strict at times, but there are good things that I want to teach a kid that, okay, what you're doing is art and it's supposed to be fun, but it's not free time. This is time for you to sit down and have some quiet time, and I want you to concentrate on the thing I've given you to do and expecting them to do it in a way that's celebrating the things that they're growing in. And it should be really fun. It's a fun project, but it's work too. And just seeing kids who start off, I've had kids who've started off just totally all over the place, not able to do anything for more than a couple minutes before they're just totally out of the place. I mean, mentally and maybe physically, they ran away. Just working slowly and slowly over time and celebrating what they're doing well. They can sit down, they can make some really lovely things. And I really love seeing that happen. And taking kids who aren't interested in art, who don't call themselves an art student or an artist, I'm really passionate about ending that kind of labeling early in life.
Oh yeah.
You're not the art kid, you're not the soccer kid, you're not the math kid. Don't do that to yourself. You can love those things, please do. Or you may not like that at all. Fine. Doesn't matter. You're gonna just try this thing today and we'll see what happens. But this isn't gonna define you. You're not you may think of yourself as good or bad at something, but I really try to celebrate in every student that they can do this art project. And I've loved seeing the kids who maybe were farther behind just really come up with some really wonderful ideas and become pretty good drawing, painting students. So I really love that. But it takes that discipline. You have to learn how to control your own body so that you're not distracting yourself and others.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
I when I teach, I say one of the best skills you can have is patience.
Hmm.
You know, the ability to understand that there is going to be there when you're working on your artwork or your design that there's going to be times when it's gonna be boring. It's not like always fun and games. Like you, oftentimes the best part is actually the final piece to see your work completed. But like I've often been really honest. Like sometimes like it's not so fun for for the like the first 99% of it. Like it can be a drag, and I've been there, you know. And there are some pieces that you work on that just flow from your hand, and it's just like it's just amazing. But there's going to be other pieces that you're going to be struggling with, you know, and you got to learn how to have that grit, that patience to kind of stick through it, you know. And I completely understand where students would just kind of like cash out after or clock out after a few minutes because up until that point, excuse me, they're all they've experienced was like instant gratification. You know,
Yes,
we're looking at the TikTok generation, the YouTube generation, and videos that get that are like under a minute get a lot of views. You know, because it's just you
exactly.
know, like it's just as I was saying earlier with the Instagram, where you're getting that constant dopamine drop. You're getting what you like in really quick sequence fashion. You know.
Mhm. Or just the lack of depth that goes with that too. The depth of studying something. So I teach at a classical school. One of
Yeah.
the things that classical education is passionate about, or tries to cultivate, is just understanding the world around you in a deep way. So we
Yeah.
do a lot of what we call nature study. The regular classes do it, and the art class does it, where we go around and we draw nature for a long time, and we want to see it, like really see it, and not just what you think it looks like because you've seen a tree before. No, no. And this is so much about what art is anyway. It's just that, how do you learn to see? Spend time. You have to spend time with things to love them, and you have to know something and to love something are the same.
Yeah.
And but talking about before, I had a student just this past week who, beginning of the class, her first words to me were, "I'm not an artsy kid," or I'm not an artist," And just this week, she had some massive breakthroughs, and part of it, I tried to let her know it's okay to be mad, and it is okay to hate the thing you're working on. And I let her actually go outside and take the draft that she had and like, punch the paper and come back inside. Like, if you need to take out your frustration, come back and then we'll start again. And she did it, and now she's been coming up with some really really cool things, to the point where I'm like, this is going in the art show. This is really nice work. So I love that.
There's a lot of writers, musicians, and artists that would totally agree with that mentality of like you're not gonna love it all the time. What I like talking about this a lot because in the fake YouTube and TikTok and Instagram world, they're always talking about how like they love it, like, and yes, I, I I believe, yes, I do love it. There is a mutual love happening, but it's not always love. It's not always like this is great and it like pancakes and waffles. You know, it's not always going to be the best of the best. There's going to be some rough times, man. And sometimes what I find so funny is the everyone on these platforms, they're like that the those the TikTok school. Like, hey everyone, I'm so happy because
Mhm.
I but there's times where like you're having a rough go of it, like your work that you're doing is not coming out the way that you imagined it, or you're just having like you're not, your skill level may not be up to that point yet, or you're lacking some information to progress forward, you know.
Well, honestly, I think that's just a symptom of our horrible understanding of love in our culture. Uh, we associate love with bliss and happiness, 24/7 or enjoyment. But everyone, I think, deep down knows that true love is sacrifice. You know, the word passion gets thrown out there all the time. Passion is great, but if you know the meaning of passion, it means to suffer. And if you love something, you're willing to suffer for it. And in our world, it's like, no, whatever makes you happy until it doesn't. And you see that with, you know, just every part of of everything. If it's not making you happy right now, get rid of it. If it's a relationship, just on to the next one. If it's, you know, a piece of clothing, throw it in the dumpster. You know, you don't fix it. You don't fix things anymore. You don't, you know, our phones and all our technologies, it's built to break. Our stuff's made cheaply. It's all connected, you know. And same thing with what you do. If it's not making you happy right now, you must not love it, or you gotta move on. And some of that's healthy. You need to know when to move on from something that's not a good fit. But if it is the right thing, are you willing to suffer for it in the right way, in a healthy, appropriate way? Yeah, so it's all connected.
That phrase where you say they everything's made to break these days. I'm really mad about that. I want refrigerators to last a half a century.
Yes.
I want one that lasts for 50 years, not for 5.
Same.
If it lasts for 10 years, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You know, they don't. I don't. Can you still find? I believe you can still find some people, not old people. You can still find some people that have an old refrigerator that is still running. You know, they're like tanks.
Yeah, washers and dryers.
Washers and dryers too. They have those that are still working. That
Well,
old.
that's what I hear. Like the new ones, they get kind of messed up pretty quick. The old ones can keep on running.
Yeah, that.
Cars, I mean, classic cars. I have a lot of friends who, you know, restore and work on old cars, and you know they're still running. But my last couple vehicles, not so much.
You'd think that with all this new technology that we have, and the fact that we can literally touch a screen and it move with our finger, that cars would last for 2 centuries, and we would have cars that had like 1,000 miles for every ounce of gas. You know, some. But
Well,
no.
I
It's
think
the
we could. I think we definitely have the means to do that kind of thing. But I think it's our unwillingness to do it, because that doesn't make people money necessarily. It
yeah.
doesn't make people money if things you don't have to buy them again, uh, or just that people maybe they just don't have the same skills to fix our own stuff. I think there's a renaissance of that happening. The pandemic, hopefully, it got people thinking about, can I take care of myself? Like, you know, traditional skills.
Yeah.
I think there's that coming in a certain extent back, but a lot of times we've slipped into total consumer mode where nothing's made by us. We don't grow our own food. We don't make our own entertainment anymore. It's all just fed to us. You know, sort of like the movie Wall-E.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like, well, here's your food and your drinks, and you're in this perfect bubble of comfort, and I'll take whatever is given to me. And it goes from a creative space to a consumption space. So I think that's part of it too. Is that
Everyone's on that like those floating little
yes,
couches,
yes.
and they're literally talking to each other on a screen, but there's someone's right next. The person they're talking to on the screen is literally right next to them.
Hmm.
And then like, what was it that scene where like, what was it? Blue's the new red, or was it red's the new blue? Or like all they do is they change their shirt to different. There's like one like different color. That's it. Like it was so weird. It's like a satire on the world, right? Like there's definitely some like really good correlation there.
For sure.
But it's pretty straight to the point.
Yeah. And um I can get pretty melancholic about all this stuff, and it's my natural tendency. But I'm also, I think I am able to see some hope through all of the what seems pretty negative. I do think there are good things going on that, like I said, kind of people rediscovering what's important. I think people want quality. A lot of people really want a meaningful experience. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone does. A lot of people may be going like this to that desire and just kind of want to go with whatever is easy. But I think most people really do want something real and that they've worked for or that they've made or um, that lasts a long time.
Braelyn, we haven't touched your art. I want to know a few things. We've been
Okay.
like I like talking about this stuff. I really like talking about other things than art because I feel like everything that our experiences and what we do are a like a connected to our art to some form or another. Like if we don't have good habits, we're not going to be able to make art. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if we're not if we're like not balanced like subconsciously or like we're unhealthy in certain aspects of our life,
Yeah.
it can affect outcomes with our creativity, you know. And so I'm always interested about that kind of stuff. So it's always good to kind of pick everyone some other people's brains, pick your brain, pick other people's brains about this kind of topic. But I want to know, how do you start your artwork? Like, how do you start some of your art? What's your process? Do you have a set like standard way of going about it, or is it just random, or is it like is it uh, what's the word for it? It's like not circumstantial. Might be circumstantial, or I don't know. I can't remember the word. Just go about it. So I'll answer the
Sure.
question.
No, that is a great question, and it does. I mean, it is kind of project specific in a certain way. If I'm if I'm in my photography mood, I'll have a certain thing that I'll do there. But it's a lot more straightforward with a photo shoot in some regard. If I'm doing something like illustration and I have a project, right now I have a lot of them on the back burner, but one I'm working on right now is a children's book. So with something like that, it oftentimes you start with meeting with the client if it's a commissioned piece. If it's your own piece, it's a whole other thing. But you meet with the client, they want to tell you what they are looking for, and for me, I usually do some sketches. I'm a little um, I kind of can get my vision into thoughts and just kind of I write a lot of notes about what I want it to be, so just writing and sketches and everything. But I really love getting reference material. So the research and the getting models and getting costumes ready. As for my illustrations, I really like to do a photo shoot or a session from life. It's really important to me because I get so many more ideas when again, that physical world where it's not just all in my head. I have to get it out and play around with lighting and angles and composition so that I see, okay, this is going to work. But I didn't even think about that until I saw it in front of me with my model here. Um, so fortunately, my parents, my friends, they're all very willing recipients of my crazy projects, and a lot of them are artists too, so they totally get it. It's like you're asking me to dress up like what character today? But I enjoy that a lot. So we do a photo shoot, then I'll do some work maybe in Photoshop, doing some sketches or on paper, and then the final work. It just depends on the project. My main medium's watercolor, but I can do digital and I do oil as well. So that's sort of the flow of that. We go from thumbnail sketches to color comps to finals, and that's just kind of how I was trained. Probably most illustrators are trained with that process.
How many sketches do you do before you move to color compositions?
It depends on if the client likes it.
Okay.
I usually kind of know which one is the best, and I try to show my couple that are favorites, because I learned don't show your least favorite, because that's the one they're gonna pick. But no, I usually show them a couple, and maybe even just one, and if they say, yeah, I love that, move on right away. If they have some critique or want to make changes, we'd do that before we'd do color.
How did you land a children's book?
Actually, it started a couple years back. So most of the time, children's book authors and illustrators are just sort of paired together by the publisher. This is an author actually sought me out after seeing my work online, I think in a forum somewhere. I can't even remember where it was, but she saw my website and had contacted me probably 3 years ago.
Oh,
Said, "Hey, I
wow.
have this idea. I want to do this story. It's you know," and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to be part of it." But she hadn't been, approved by the publisher. She hadn't gotten all of that side, but she recommended me when they did, and so that's kind of unusual. I think, that I haven't done a lot of children's books. Most of my commissions are sort of either personal commissions or just different kinds of design projects. But yeah, she said she just really loved my work and she wanted me to be the one to do it. So the publisher was like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do it." And that's how it happened. It sort of just took time, and that's another thing about what we had mentioned in the beginning is patience, and not and just planting the seeds, because you don't know when they're gonna start growing.
Yeah.
You might talk to someone and then years later they think of you to hire you. So that's something important. But yeah, that's how it came to be. And it's supposed to be coming out next spring, I would say. It's called Faustina. She's a famous figure in Catholicism, but also just sort of in history.
Yeah.
For those, she's really important to Poland, and so we're doing a book about her, and I'm excited, and just feeling the deadline though.
How many pages do you have to illustrate?
And this one's 36 pages. A lot of children's books are 32 to 40 pages.
How long does it usually take you to finish one page?
It just depends, because some pages are a full, image, full bleed image, and some are more of a spot illustration. So I could get that done a lot more quickly than full illustration spread or single page. But it just varies, because it also, like I said, it kind of depends on the time I have available. If I have like a Saturday or something where I feel like being in the studio, or I can be in the studio, sit down and get a lot done. Sometimes it's just, here's an hour here. I don't know how long I spent. Keeping track of time for pricing is also something I've done both of the methods of that. Do I bill my hours, or do I just do like flat fees? I've tried it all, and sometimes I think flat fees are easier with my schedule. Not just like keeping a time clock can be tricky sometimes. But anyway, to answer that, it just depends.
So are you being or I was about to ask that. How are you being paid? Are you being paid for the project? Are you being per hour, or are you gonna get like a small like stipend and then get like some royalties?
It's sort of all of the above. Like, you get the fee for it, Every publisher is going to be different too on how they do things, and depends on what kind of contract you get, whether it's, you know, there are different categories of how you get hired out.
I've been reading
Some
about
are
it.
better than others, and some, but it just depends on kind of how they've formatted it. And I won't go into which way they're doing it, but it is sort of that all of the above, where you do get a commission for sales, but there's also an upfront fee, and
Yeah.
you can negotiate all of that depending on if you're trying to do a certain way. It's important that you kind of read up on what am I comfortable with, what am I not going to do. Um, if you have an agent, that helps. I don't have an agent. I would love to get one. I used to think I wanted to be one, and maybe I still will. But having an agent kind of can help with that negotiation side.
Yeah.
But it's always a learning curve for me, especially. I just feel like, well, what did I like about this experience? Would I do it again? Would I not do it again? And I'm enjoying it right now, so I would love to do another book. Um,
How
but
many have you done?
this is my first one with like a known publisher, and
Okay.
um, and it's not a huge publisher either. But I've done some that are like self-publishing. I've done some with some kind of more niche publications, but this is really my first one that I consider like real. um, Most of my work before this actually so some of my work was for a studio here in town that I really loved, and I recently got to do another design commission. I did a brochure with some of my photography and some design work. So that's more typical of what I've done in that sense. It's not necessarily going to have my name all over it, but I love that kind of work too. Graphic design and photography. But the studio, I worked for them. I got to do some mural design. That's another type of the illustration world that I like, is murals. And but they do a lot of traditional stained glass, sculpture, bronze, painting, all of that. So that was another way so it wasn't so much children's books as it was sort of this interiors setting that I was using my skills. But yeah, that's the nice thing about being an artist, though. I feel like if you know art, you can shift gears. You can do different things at different times because you know the fundamentals. You know good design. You know basically what works and what doesn't work.
How many more pages do you have left on this book here?
I've just finished kind of the last draft before starting on all the finals. So
Oh.
I have plenty of work to do in the next 2 months.
I thought I thought you're like, oh, I have like 15 pages, 10 pages.
No,
You've got
no,
the mock-ups done, right?
yep.
Oh wow. Oh, that
But the nice
that's
part
some
about
work.
it is once you've gotten all the preliminary planning done, then it's just go time. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the fun part. It's also scary, but it's the fun part because then it's like, well, I know my plan. All of the thinking in terms of composition and layout and
Yeah.
where this text might go or whatever is done. I've done the model shoot. I've done the sketches. We've agreed on this. Now, I mean, I know what colors it's all going to be. Now I just have to make it look pretty.
Are you gonna like set like goals for the deadline? Are you gonna like I want to do like a page every 2 days, or a page every 3 days, or a page and a half every 3 days, or something like that? If you have 2 months and you have like 36 pages to do, or is that what you're gonna be trying to do? Or is that what you're gonna be trying to set for yourself, like a pace?
Well, it's sort of, I kind of measure it by Saturdays.
Okay.
Or, did I hit this many by this Saturday?
Okay.
How many do I have by this Saturday? Because Saturdays are sort of that day where I'm not at school. I'm not really doing well. Some days I do have obligations, but it's sort of that day where, okay, if I wasn't super productive all this week, that's my day. I'm going to do it. Let's hope I don't get sick or hurt or something, like hope nothing comes up. But that's sort of my checkpoint, Saturday by Saturday. And, I kind of have it in mind that, I'm going to get all of the spot illustrations done for this next Saturday. I want to get them all at least started and maybe done by midweek. Then the full page ones I can kind of lump together in groups, and because I don't like to get one done and then the next one done, and then I kind of work on it all and build it up together.
So do you start like the underdrawing of each one, or you start the underdrawing of like 5 or so?
Yeah, and I mean, since I've already
Sketch.
pretty much done that part with the comps, it's mostly just cleaning it up and little adjustments if I need to.
What advice can you give to other artists?
Just in terms of making art, or
Whatever way you want to, however way you want to frame it. It could be just about like if you want to be, it could be spiritual, it could be business, it could be personal, whatever way you want to frame it.
I would say, um, know your worth, whether just on a personal level, love yourself, take care of yourself, and again, love yourself, not just feel good about yourself no matter what. It's not just this accepting less than what you can be, but loving yourself unconditionally.
Yeah.
That your life, that you can take care of yourself, that you shouldn't just be I don't know. I guess just, yeah, know your worth, know what matters to you, and keep chasing the goal, but don't be afraid to do other things too. There's a fine balance, because a lot of artists, they train to be artists and then they don't pursue it, or they can't pursue it, and that's okay. If you can't, you can't. Or if you try it and you realize it's not for you, okay, that's fine. But it's a long game, so don't give up if you really want to do it, but treat yourself well. You don't have to be, I guess, totally a starving artist or disturbed to be an artist. Like,
Yeah.
I think
I don't
that's
like that
SCAD
stereotype.
SCAD talking, because that's a school that's like all about employment. So they did train me to be, you want to make a living, it's okay, but take care of your mental health. Eat well, sleep well, and I'm talking to myself. Get enough sleep. I'm gonna
That's
go
important.
uh, try to take care of yourself. I know I need to exercise so much more for my well-being, and don't stay in your studio all day. Have friends, and know why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's a huge deal, because artists, it's not the default job.
Yeah.
If you don't have a reason for doing it, it's gonna be tough. So yeah, that's probably the broad brush.
I've talked about this a lot where I made this statement often is artists really do, I mean, it pains me to say it, like it just hurts to say it. Artists really do undervalue themselves.
Mhm.
Like it's just like I'm just like I'm rubbing my eyes now just thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, because it's 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 so aggravating. Like artists are so good
Mhm.
so willing to just to make that sale that they'll sell their work for like nothing.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, no, don't do that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Why? Like
Yeah.
the paper costs more than the drawing than how you're selling it. That that paper is $5. You're selling the drawing for $1.50. What are you doing? You know? I don't understand where is this coming from? And they're like, I sold some. Like, no, you lost the money. We're not even talking about the time that you spent on the piece, you know.
Mhm.
And I found it's so funny and sad. Not no, it's not funny as in like, oh ha ha. It's like it's like, ooh. And I don't know, like I think that's another thing that the market online has kind of created
Yeah.
this this competition, you know, because people like they think of it like Amazon, you
Mhm.
know, like, oh, you could buy a stereo like this for 19.99, and I'm at this place and they're selling it for 35.99. I could go to Amazon right now and buy it for 19.99. They think like, you know, or they go the equivalent would be like, oh, this person on Etsy is doing portraits for some ridiculous amount, and
Mhm.
and they're like, why are you charging this much and this person's charging this much?
Yeah.
um Maybe he's really fast, maybe she's really fast, maybe he or she has a lot of volume, you know. um who knows?
Yeah.
And that's they got that market down. They can get that drawing done quicker than I could. But you're paying for that person's work, okay? You're paying. There's a difference. Like that person's work, they can charge that because they have a set skill of doing a piece like that in a very fast fashion. I would assume. Otherwise, they wouldn't be charging that much. Um, and I am not going to be able to do it at that. It's not going to look like that. It's probably going to be better. I'm just, I'm going to be a little, I'm going to brag, right? If I was that, like, it's probably going to be better. That's why I'm charging what I am, and that person's charging that because there's a difference in skill level. I don't know, but
Mhm.
yeah, that there's like competition happening, and like there's this market equivalency, you know, of what how like a standard customer sees that and then sees portrait artists, and they like shop for portrait artists, and then they like try to kind of swindle you, I guess. But you know, artists will try to really dive in and short sell themselves, and it drives me bananas. That's what it
Well,
does.
it's also just we we know what goes into it, and if people don't, they don't. It's just anything else.
Yeah,
Anything could be the same. You go to a fancy restaurant and you're scandalized when your meal costs, $80. You're like, what? I mean, but it's the fact is it's using really good ingredients. The
yeah,
chefs have been training to make it that good. The place, the ambiance, all of it goes into it. And so
yeah,
if you break that down, and then people can appreciate it. They're like, "Well, let me pay double," And it's the
yeah,
same with us. And I need to work on that too. A lot is um, I try to break down my prices so that it's more visible. Like, here's this part of the invoice or this part of the, so that they're not just like lump sum. Mm. It's like, well, there's also the invisible component of your training, your education, the fact that you can do this job in half the time
yeah,
because they don't have to learn how to do it. Already that any other job, a surgeon, people aren't going to be like, well, that surgeon, I mean, what's the deal with that bill? It's like, well, I can't do that. Same with us. I mean, it's not the same level of intensity of saving someone's life necessarily, but we have skills, and
yeah.
yeah. But I think educating people in a way that they can see the value is important, and just knowing it for yourself. Like, and I've settled. I've settled on a lot of that too. Like I could have sold that for this or
Yeah.
whatever. But if you break it down for yourself, you're like, okay, well, I need to do this, 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 and this, and this. What's that worth to me?
Hmm.
But yeah, all of us kind of suffer when we're underselling.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you brought up restaurants
Yeah.
because a lot of people will have no problem dropping a bill $100 on a meal at a restaurant. Like, well, once you're done eating that food's gone.
Right.
It ceases to be. When
Mhm.
you buy a painting for $500 to $1,000, it's going to be here for 5, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's not going to be, oh, this is a good painting. I'm not gone. You know, it's
Yeah.
there. It's there indefinitely until you decide that you want to either get rid of it or sell it
Mhm.
or give it to someone else. It's there, right? It's an actual. It doesn't go away unless you destroy it or get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, and also the other thing is like a lot of people they're willing to pay for like hundreds to thousands of dollars on a
Mhm.
tattoo.
Sure.
You know, like they're willing to pay that much money on a tattoo, but not a piece that is on a piece of paper or on canvas. That's where I get um this weird disconnect. I would get asked from friends like, "What? You should be a tattoo artist." Like I pay my tattoo artist like 75 to $100 an hour. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, man. And they're willing to pay that, right? And I find that's weird because they're artists too, but there's a demand for them,
Mhm.
and they're willing. They get like primo prices. They don't have to They don't have to compete with like fine artists in the same realm and lower their value to compete against other artists who are in theory lowering their price margin or whatever you call
Mhm.
it.
Right. Well, when we straddle this world of supply and demand versus having something to share, I think we have to be both a dreamer and a realist because you can't just go out there and say, I'm going to make my thing and people are going to eat it up and buy it, like maybe they will, but not without some help.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll click with that one patron. And again, if you're in the really fine art world, one patron's all you need. Really, a good patron or client, you're good. Most art, though, isn't necessarily in that category. And so you have to also understand that money it works because people want to buy something or have to buy something.
Yeah.
And so knowing that you're probably going to do work to make money, or, whether that's art or some other job, you have to eat, you have to pay bills. And there may be a few who do that with their dream projects
Yeah.
all the time, or, but that's rare and that's okay. I mean, that's just how it works. Um, So just don't give up on the things if you feel like you're called to make a certain art, if you're called to make something specific and put it out there, just know that if people don't come flocking to pay you lots of money, you didn't fail at that. It's
Yeah.
just that's not how humans operate, and not everyone can afford it anyway. So yeah, there's a balance. I think that's where I like the photography world. Especially, I hear a lot of people who do things like wedding photography, they label their pricing as the investment, because they realize, well, first of all, people care a lot about their wedding day, they care a lot about their kids' portraits, all those
Yeah.
things. There's a demand because they understand that this is important to me, but the price still needs to reflect that this is an investment for you.
Yeah.
And if we treated our art that's any sort of visual art the same way. It's like it's an investment. Are you willing to make that investment in me, a person? First of all, an artist. I'm not just here a machine that's churning out something. I'm a person who needs to earn a living, and also for you, do you want something of value in your life?
Yeah. Of
Um,
course.
it's the same kind of thing. I go back to the restaurant or the food thing. I have some friends who are farmers, and it's like oftentimes, again, that path of least resistance. I go to the grocery store, I do my shopping there because it's quick, it's easy, and on the way. But then there are times where I'm like, nope, I'm gonna go to the farmer's market this time because my friend's there and I want to support this person. And I think there is a good shift again going on with artisan, craftsmen, handmade products that people want to support a local real person. Not that other people aren't real people, but just people in your community, or that you feel like you have a connection.
That's part of the power of social media right now is like
Yeah.
you can connect to people, and there's the ability that 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 Coca-Cola can't give. You
Mhm.
know, you're gonna have a Coca-Cola, like they can't do an art live stream, and talk to someone. That they would have to, like, they'd have a rep, you know, uh,
Sure.
talking to their customers, and so there's a personalness that you can't get, you
Mhm.
know.
Which, and they might have started that way. Every business started off
Of course.
small. So, people who've been massively successful, they obviously did something right at the beginning. And some people, a lot of competitors. It comes down to the marketing and the branding and the
Yeah.
relationships. If you don't continue to cultivate those, you won't last as a business. Yeah.
Braylon, I noticed at the very beginning, we were talking about, like, sacrificing, um, like things that we love in order to pursue our goals. So you mentioned that you wanted to pursue some goals and you needed to give up certain things. This is a question that kind of pertains to that. What would be your dream project, or what are some goals that you want to achieve in the future?
I mean, I definitely want to do more books, especially similarly themed books. I want to really build my photography work up too. Sort of just kind of more. I want that volume. I want to increase it. And I'm very grateful that I've been given opportunities that I have. But I feel that the very real possibility of it just being like, I did it once and then kind of losing that momentum. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I want to continue to build my portfolio. I want to continue to make that a priority, to continue to have my pipeline filling. And it takes a lot of work. It does. It takes work to make that happen. And it's easy to think it's luck, and some of it is, circumstances. You can't always make things happen the way you want, because life is not always what you want, and we all know that pretty clearly right now. That things are going to happen that are out of your control, but I really want to make sure I'm able to do as much of the things I'm doing right now as I can, and not let those opportunities slip by.
How would you like people to remember this conversation?
Well, I hope they would feel encouraged to get to know themselves better as a person, not just by the cultural influences that have been put around them. I mean, we are all formed and shaped by our environment. That's so obvious. No one's able to be in a vacuum. And I'm not saying you should be, but I think just, get to know yourself. If you're someone who believes in God, like, get to know God better. Um, be a good friend to people, and let your art be something that adds, like you said, adds value to the world, and isn't just another noise. Isn't just something um, adding noise to the world, or visual stimulation, but if you can, have it be something beautiful, have it be something that celebrates the good, the true, the beautiful, um, because our world really needs that. And we have a unique place in shaping what people think and believe about everything, and that's a powerful responsibility, and it's a fun one. It's hard work and scary, but it's fun, and what an honor, you know.
Braelyn Snow, just want to say thank you so much for taking time every day to talk to me. I know it's really late for you, but I have one thing to ask. Where can people find you online? Where can people look you up?
Well, thanks, Matt. I really have appreciated being here. It's been great. A lot of great questions and things I wasn't planning on talking about, and I'm glad we did. You can find me. My website's braelynsnow.com. Pretty straightforward. And my Instagram is Braelyn Snow Illustration. I do have my photography website too, just same deal, braelynsnowphoto.com. But if you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. Um, I'm trying to stay a little bit away from Facebook just because time, so you can try to find me there if you want to, but probably the other ways are better.
Braelyn, thank you so much. Everyone that was watching, I just want to say I appreciate you. It was wonderful. I'm glad that you stayed to watch the conversation. I hope it provided you some value and provided you some insight into Braelyn's world as an artist. If you like this content, if you like artist interviews, and you also like daily live art streams, please subscribe to my channel. It is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Everyone, I wish everyone a wonderful day. Braelyn, thank you. Cheers.